What is to be done if you have bitten off more than you can chew? Well, then things have to be swallowed, which is also the title of the movie I'm about to review. If you want to know what exactly has to be swallowed and how that all translates into the overall plot of this movie, then follow me for this short review video. Ben and Dom have been best friends forever, and while the more trained and athletic Ben is gay, the more average looking Dom is not. Or at least that is what he pretends to be, because he doesn't want to jeopardize their friendship. On their last night together, because Ben is planning to move to Los Angeles to become a porn star, Dom has one glorious idea that is supposed to raise some money for Ben, so he has a nice and slick start in his new place of residence.
Surprise! I just wanted to send you off to California with a little bit of cash, alright? It's just a package for a friend.
Drugs?
So here's the deal. Dom's cousin is friends with a drug trafficker, who regularly uses her as a mule to get stuff across the border. So she arranged that Dom would also be able to do a run across the border, which should earn him a pretty penny that he can then give to Ben. Ben, who wasn't aware of this plan and would have likely not gone through with it, only finds out when it's already too late. Because as it turns out, they are not meeting with Dom's cousin as planned, who they are being told is knocked out due to some drugs she recently took.
Are you Dom?
Yeah? Who are you?
A friend of your cousin's.
So instead they are greeted by Alice, a non-nonsense drug dealer. Again, deviating from the plan, she is asking Dom to swallow the drugs. Something that his cousin never has done before and something that he wasn't aware of. Being uncomfortable with it, and as Ben also implied not to do it, Alice takes out her gun and forces Dom to swallow the drugs. While Dom is preoccupied for a few seconds, she also forces Ben at gunpoint to swallow some of the drugs. The plan is, of course, to cross the border and then later poop out the stuff and return it to the drug dealers on the other side of the border. As these instructions are pretty straightforward, they are both confused about another requirement. And that is that the condoms full of drugs, after leaving their bodies, need to be stored at a specific temperature in a small containment unit that is providing exactly that. And at first everything works according to plan. They are crossing the border and they try their best to make the drugs leave their body again. However, while being located on a bathroom of a roadside facility, Ben is being harassed by a redneck trucker. So, to defend his honor, Dom is stepping in and gets hit into the stomach, which apparently makes at least one of the bags break, because he is in dire pain. Soon after, Dom is able to retrieve the first of the bags, and the drugs inside appear to be moving. What's up with that? Leaving the restroom in panic, they run into Alice, who promised to take care of Dom and brings them to a small hut somewhere in the woods, where they are supposed to wait till the drugs have passed. As if things are not complicated enough at that point, this is when Alice's boss shows up and things really get complicated. This film was quite an interesting watch, starting with the decision that this movie was filmed in 3x4 instead of 16:9, which likely is supposed to give the movie a retro look, reminding us of the movies of the 80s and early 90s. It likely was also supposed to give it a little bit of a grindhouse look, while also is likely a statement by the director of giving it a little bit of an arthouse look, just by differentiating it a little bit that way from other movies. Let's cover the usual bases. Though most of the actors are just starting out their career, the acting is solid throughout the whole movie. Of course you have some veteran actors there as well, like Jena Malone playing Alice. And with Patton as Alice's boss, you have another veteran actor, though he does not have that many roles in his vita. An actor whose most prominent role was Jesse Walsh, the lead character in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 Freddy's Revenge, a movie that has become some kind of a staple in gay culture. So a really nice nod to the audience. The technical aspects like camera and editing are also solid, so there's nothing to complain about. As you can imagine from the synopsis, the movie has some kind of a weird and uncomfortable atmosphere. Unfortunately, we only hear the stuff that is uncomfortable and not necessarily see it. If we would have seen what the movie is presenting us plot-wise, then I guess the movie would have been quite disgusting. But don't misunderstand me, if you are expecting a lot of male nudity coming your way, you will get this full frontal. You will just not see the things that the two lead actors are forced to go through. But as I mentioned, hear it and see their reactions. But also don't be afraid that this movie might just be tailored to an LGBTQ plus audience, because everyone can watch this movie if he has an open mind and doesn't feel weirdly touched by some topics around the gay lifestyle that should be normal to us anyway. I'm just mentioning that because I heard from some audience members that this movie was obviously not made with them in mind, which I would say is not completely true. It is a tough watch, but that has nothing to do with the LGBTQ angle. It is about the fact that this movie has a weird and specific kind of violence that came out of a necessity and is especially impactful as most of the movie is filmed like an intimate play in a very small space. One last call out though is that, of course, there were some issues with the screenplay, as usually with most movies. Here I am mainly wondering why they are forced to swallow the stuff, something that their cousin has never done before, and that also does not seem to be that necessary because they were crossing the Canadian border, if I'm not mistaken, and there is not that much of a check going on there. Also, if they have the containment unit with them, if their car is being searched, then I guess the border police might be interested in knowing what this is for. But of course that was necessary to get the movie going. And the other thing that seems to be not making sense is if they are really experienced drug traffickers, then they have a weird understanding of how the digestive system is working. Because after they crossed the border, they were supposed to poop out the stuff immediately, like 2 or 3 hours later. This is just not how it works, even though in this movie it works partially, so that seems to be a little bit weird. But there's more weird stuff going on, so it might just fit right in. I will not tell you how the movie ends and what is up with the drugs, but I will let you know that the movie is more about what happens to the two of them than the mystery of the wiggling drugs. Now, before we get to the rating, let me ask you to like and share this video if you enjoyed it so far. And if you are no subscriber yet, maybe consider to change that. By also hitting the notification bell, you will get a heads up for most of my new videos. So now for the rating. Now, as I mentioned before, this movie is not for the faint of heart, because in some aspects it really digs in deeply and really does a good job in making you cringe. There's also the aspect that some people might feel a little bit offended due to the fact that what they are presented with, at least in some smaller parts, is something that is not fitting into their usual way of viewing things. But this is just a question of how far you are along on your journey of things about the LGBTQ community being normalized in your head, which is thankfully a thing that is progressing better in recent years than it was in previous times. What I mean by that is, the more we see things around LGBTQ topics, the more they get normalized, and the more normalized they are, as the word normalize suggests, the more natural they are to us and feel as normal as they should. Besides the intense atmosphere, the movie also has some moments where it feels a little bit stretched, and where it also feels a little bit heavy on the uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes a little less is a little more, but that is just a minor bump in the road here. When watching the movie, you should also know and keep in mind that it is less about a deeper meaning and a message, but more about the experience of watching it and experiencing what happens to the leads. Due to all those aspects, rating this movie was quite tough, but I would say it was a good one. It has some room for improvement, so a 7 out of 10 seems to be a good fit for this one. So if you want to see something that is a little bit different from your usual fare and you are not offended by some dangling dongs that are swinging free, then give this movie a shot. Well, after hearing this review, would you be willing to give this movie a shot? Are you interested in finding out what happens to the leads? Does that movie sound interesting to you in any regard? Or not? Let me know in the comments. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching.